This is how I'd fix an entrepreneur's YouTube strategy step by step. We'll look at the small changes that he can make that will create big results, and how you can implement these into your own channel with just 3 easy steps. My goal is to provide you with actionable information without trying to shove a load of fancy editing down your throat. This is Itamar Marani, and he helps 7 to 9 figure entrepreneurs master their mindset so they can perform at elite levels. To improve his YouTube strategy, we're looking for those big levers, things that take a little bit of time to implement but will give outsized returns for that investment. And we're not going to be focusing on trying to get millions of views on his channel, but instead getting views from the right kind of people. And everything that I talk about today will be focused on that. So if we scroll through his videos on his channel, there's a few things that pop out to me, and the first is his thumbnails. And those are the little images that we have here, the little previews of all of the videos. And I think these could be massively improved. Because his videos are fighting for attention with every other video on YouTube, we need to make sure they stand out. And as it stands, these thumbnails don't really stand out. So let me explain. If we take this thumbnail in particular, we can see that it has the text Debrief 2023 like the Special Forces, and then in the video title it also says how to effectively debrief 2023. So it's giving us that same information in 2 different places, which is wasting real estate. The way I look at thumbnails is they should capture that initial curiosity, make you interested in the video, and then you read the title. And that's what explains what the video is about. But here, by repeating that information, we're wasting space. So we want to look at channels that are similar, and this guy, Rian Doris, has a channel that's all about flow state, and it teaches elite performers how to get into flow state so they can perform at their best. So I think it's going to be attracting the same kind of people as Itamar's channel is. So what we can do is take this style and apply it to Itamar's channel. Now what I did is I created this thumbnail here. Now on first glance, if you were trying to figure out what is this video about, to me it would be explaining that the Special Forces are doing something different than everyone else. They're getting better results because they're doing something, but it doesn't really explain what that thing is. And that's where the title would come in. So now we could call the video Debrief 2023 like the Special Forces. And that immediately tells us what the video is about. That thumbnail is giving us that initial curiosity and giving us a little hint at the video, but that title then fills in the rest of that picture so we really understand what the video is. We compare that to the original one, where now we are not wasting real estate. We're not saying the same thing in the thumbnail and the exact same thing in the title. And we're also making it clear what the video is about. Now we touched on titles there a little bit, so let's dig into that even more. So if we look at some of the titles on his channel, we notice a lot of them are being cut off. I can do things regardless of how I feel, and then at the end we have these 3 dots which tells us the title is too long. We can't see the complete title on YouTube. Again, we have that same problem here. ... at the end, further down, ... All these titles are too long. We can't see the complete picture. So what we should be doing is shortening his titles. Now, typically you want to have your titles under 60 characters, ideally under 50 characters. And this will make sure that they display correctly on YouTube without having that ... because you've run out of space. So we can see this title here has Elite Performance Podcast in it. We could remove that from the title and put it into the video description, and YouTube would still recognise it. It would still see it there. So if somebody searched for Elite Performance Podcast number 47 on YouTube, they would still find that video. So this title, I can do things regardless of how I feel, with Rai Hickey, and then Elite Performance Podcast number whatever it was. That title is 86 characters long, which is way too long. Like I said, keep it under 60 or under ideally 50 characters long. If we look at this whole title, The bit in red is what I would just completely remove from the title, and the green is what I would keep. Now, I've removed the with Rai Hickey because if that person is not famous or well known, there's not really a benefit to putting their name in the title. If you were leveraging social proof and you had someone like Andrew Huberman in the title, then of course put their name in the video title because people will click on it just because they recognise his name. But if nobody's recognising Rai Hickey, then just remove it from the title because you're using up real estate. And again, I would remove the Elite Performance Podcast and shift that down into the video description. That would leave the title as I can do things regardless of how I feel. That's not very tangible. It feels a little wishy-washy. It doesn't really explain anything. I can do things. Like, what does that mean? I can do what things, regardless of how I feel? Like, how was he feeling? There's so much ambiguity in that title that I would change it even more. We want to make it as clear as possible what the video is about. So think about how would an ideal viewer describe their problem. In this case, someone might say, I have a fear of failure and it is holding me back from taking action. We could also think about what is the biggest tangible result in that video that we could highlight. So what is the biggest result that person had in the video? So in this case, it could be he doubled his revenue. And both of these we could turn into video titles. So let's look at some alternative title ideas. We could change it to I can take action without fear, or he doubled his revenue with this one mindset shift. Or we can look at this example, Elite Lessons in Strategy from Embarrassment to Success with Special Forces Wisdom. That, again, is a bit wishy-washy. It doesn't really explain what the video is about. It doesn't give us a clear picture of the video. Because Elite Lessons in Strategy, what's that to do with? Is it to do with going into battle? Is it to do with business strategy? Is it to do with mindset strategy? There's so many different topics that could cover, and that title does not explain what the video is about. So instead, we could rename the title to this: Special Forces Soldier Reveals His Mindset Secrets. Here we're telling people what the video is clearly about, and there's loads of ways we could do this. We could change it to something like Special Forces Soldier reveals his hack to perform under pressure. Special Forces Soldier reveals his secret to becoming unstoppable. All of these would still be the same video, but we're just explaining it in a slightly different way. But we are telling people what the video is about. And that will make a big difference to how many people watch it. Because if people are confused before they click on the video, they're never going to want to watch it. But when they do click on the video, there are some super simple changes that we can make to his videos that will see a massive return. So as people watch a video, most will drop off at different points. You'll start the video with 100% of people watching, but by the end of the video, maybe you'll only have 20, 30, 40% of people still watching. And they'll all drop off at different points. Now the introduction is where you'll see the fastest drop off in people. And if we can make some changes there, it will have big results. So here we have fixed the introduction so less people drop off. Now the rest of the graph is exactly the same. We still have the same tail off and the same amount of people dropping. At the end of the video, instead of having 25% of people still watching, we now could have 50% of people watching. And that's double the amount of people sticking around for the video just by changing the introduction. But what does that mean in the real world? So if Itamar put a call to action 2/3 of the way through, maybe 25% of people would see that call to action. So from 100 views, only 25 people would actually see that call to action. But if we fix the introduction and reduce the steepness on that graph, now we're going to see a big difference. Instead of 25% of people on a call to action, maybe we'll get 50% of people. So that could literally double how many people take action. So if he wants people to sign up to his email list, he could literally double how many people sign up just by spending a little bit more time on the introductions. Now let's cover some of the important things an introduction should do. Number one, it needs to set expectations, what the viewer can expect from watching the video. Two, it should create curiosity and give them a reason to stick around and actually watch the video. And number three, you want to create a map and tell people how they will receive that information. So you could say, today I'm joined by ABC and we're going to cover point 1, point 2 and point 3. Let's actually look at one of the introductions for one of his videos.
If you know what to do, but you're not able to do it, that's when you need a mindset coach. And again, this is for the poker players, but it's for anyone in any aspect of high performance.
On today's podcast, we have Elliot Rowe joining us. Elliot just came out with a new book, A Game Poker, Master the Mental Game, Create a Winning Mindset, and Dominate the Modern Poker Game.
So there are a few things here. They improve their mindset. If they reduce the amount of time they're making emotional play.
And in this introduction, he does a few things really well. There is fast editing to keep attention and get the viewer hooked, and he pulls interesting phrases from the video to hook the viewer. But this could be improved further. So let's go through that introduction line by line and I'll show you how to make it a lot better without much extra work. In green, I've highlighted the bits that I like and I would keep, and then in red, I've put the bits that I would just remove from the introduction. So in this case, he says, and again, this is for the poker players, but it's for anyone in any aspect of high performance. If I heard that, if he said, this is for poker players, immediately I would think to myself, okay, well, I'm not a poker player, so this is probably not for me. And that would make me more likely to click off. And I know he counters it straight away, and he does say, but it's for anyone in any aspect of high performance. But at that point, he's already sown that seed of doubt in my mind. He's already given me a reason to click off that video. So I would just completely remove that sentence. So in this next sentence, he introduces Elliot and tells us that he's come out with a book recently. But if we don't know who Elliot is, we probably don't care. We're not interested in the fact that he has this new book. There's no benefit to the viewer by knowing this, so I would just completely remove that entire section. Next, he says there are a few things here they do to improve their mindset, and then if they reduce the amount of time they're making emotional plays at the table, they will see a very big return on that money. The part in red is a statement that people do things to improve their mindset. So as a viewer, you might think, well, what is it that they do? But he immediately answers that statement and immediately tells us what they do, which is stop making emotional plays at the table. So we've put this question in the viewer's mind, but then we've immediately answered it. So instead, I would just take away one of those parts. I'd take away the question or I'd take away the answer. And in this case, I would just take away that initial statement. After that, we have another longer section, which I think is quite good. So how do you differentiate someone who's doing well and someone needs to work on their inner game? That's a question that Itamar asks the podcast guest. And then he starts to answer it by saying people start to make emotional plays, and a lot of sports visualization is just seeing yourself being successful. So he's answering it, but then immediately flipping that on its head by saying, actually, I think that's the incorrect way. So this is a really clever bait and switch where he's kind of given us the answer to the question and then saying, but actually that's what people normally do, but I think that is wrong. So it's hinting at a new solution. And this is a great way to hook people in. Now, the only part of that whole section that I would remove is just this single sentence in red. An example of this shows itself quite frequently in poker, just because if I don't care about poker, I am not going to be as interested. So we can cut that sentence out without losing any impact on this section. And then finally, he introduces Elliot again and tells us about his book that's just come out. And for the same reasons as earlier, I would just remove this section. As a viewer, we don't really care that he has a book, and it doesn't tell us what's in it for us. As a viewer, we need a reason to stick around, so I would just remove this section entirely. And by making all of those changes, we take the video from 50 down to 28 seconds. So let's look at what he did well in the introduction. He did set expectations and he did create some curiosity, but the only thing this introduction would be missing now is creating a map. So telling the viewer how they're going to receive the information. So saying, I'm joined by Elliot, who teaches poker players how to perform under pressure, and we're going to cover how point 1, point 2 and point 3. And we have to think about what is in it for the viewer. So point 1 could be how you can handle stress in any situation. Point 2 might be something like double your output without working any harder. So we just make sure we relate it back to the viewer and give them reasons why they should care. And if you're an entrepreneur and want help with getting more clients from YouTube, I'll put a link down below in the video description.